All right, guys. So today I'm going to work through 3 different drills, kind of a good neuro sequence, kind of work on getting some more pressure inside that left side and then kind of training that left side. Oftentimes what we see in golf is what I call like a fake left. A lot of guys have a hard time actually getting into their left side. They lack IR all the way up the chain. So as a result, they start in their right and they end in their right, and they end up backing out all kinds of ways to contort the body. And a lot of that has to do with the hips can't seesaw if my left side can't accept everything coming from my right side. And it might seem strange thinking that both my feet are on the ground. What the hell does that mean? But a lot of times, from a pressure standpoint, the pressure inside at the ground, oftentimes like I have this like spin in my right hip. And a lot of times it's because that left side isn't really on and pulling me open. So even a lot of good players, guy I work with, I've seen Rory do this. A lot of times there's like this preset on their left side before they even kind of set up to take the club back. And it's like acknowledging that bias that a lot of golfers get from loading into their right side 6 hours a day, every day. So first drill I'm gonna do, it's a good one to use a band on here. It's super light, but what I'm gonna do is start to turn on this left side, get from an arch perspective. So think if I have like a triangle across my toe line to my heel, I want some solid pressure with that. And then I wanna think that I'm trying to pull the floor and the wall apart like this. So oftentimes what I'll see, even when guys do this, is that I want like this kind of expanding. So some cheats will be this right side just kind of shuts off when I'm working my left, or I kind of start to do this, and what I'll see for a lot of guys on their left is they just shoot back. So it's kind of like a fake left, like I was saying. So I want to have, if I was to look at this arch right here and then look at the shin angle, I should have a positive angle. It should be less than 90 degrees. A lot of times people just kind of lock out or they dump the arch, and as a result, they're standing on their leg, but there's no pressure to really get up into the glute and challenge the post. So this first drill, what I want to do, a lot of times guys can have something here like a foam roller or something kind of help balance. So what I want to do is I want to take the floor, the wall, I'm going to pull it apart, okay? And then I want to set myself by driving my right knee down, keeping that glute on. So like I said, a lot of times I'll see this with this leg. I want to kind of have this arch and this shin loaded. And then I want to imagine I'm kind of coming over a net. So I'm going to inhale on the down. I want this left side to get longer. I'm going to inhale down and then exhale, coming back up. A lot of times what I'll see is the foot on the wall starts to spin, or each time I come up, it's kind of like I shut off. I want to keep the pressure inside the arches the whole time to ensure everything stays on the entire set. That keeps kind of everything just from a neural connection. So I'm inhale breath. I want to pushing down. I'm scooping the butt on this left, and then I'm coming back up. So on this drill, I think a lot of times people try to go all the way to the floor. It's not about how low, but a lot of times for guys, they'll do a set of 5, 10 reps on this with 0 weight, and your ass cheek will be on fire. All right, guys, so this second drill, what I want you to think is that I'm gonna kind of hold some space in my arches. We're gonna work on starting to drive better pressure, get some posterior expansion in your left hip. So a lot of times what that means is I need this left arch on, some adductor, some ass cheek. And a lot of times what ends up happening is people either collapse their arch or they're spun into this right side. So I wanna make sure I'm in a square perspective, and on this kind of retro stance here, I like to go basically heel to toe. And then imagine if I was basically pulling the floor apart and I'm on a merry-go-round. Well, imagine I'm trying to push the merry-go-round that way. Because when I push a force this way, I actually get into that hip, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm gonna breathe. And then on the inhale breath, I'm gonna try to pull that wall apart. And then on the exhale, I'm gonna push that merry-go-round. And this is where this left hip's gonna sit a little higher than the right, and I'm gonna start to get into that hip capsule. So this is what it looks like. We're gonna go wall, and if people have good sense, I actually like to go heel, but if If you feel like you need foot down on here to kind of feel things, it's all good. So I want kind of like a 90 degree. You to make sure, here's me in extension. If I was to push up on the knees, it's kind of like a car on bags. It's like I should come online. The band is gonna help kind of trap the pressure in the feet. Hands are down, don't wanna lock the elbows, and I'm going to inhale breath. I'm thinking, fill the rib cage, 360. And then exhale, it's an ever so slight squeeze as I push into that imaginary merry-go-round. So it's an inhale breath. So remember on here, when I squeeze, slight squeeze, I'm gonna push through that left big toe. Then I wanna imagine kind of my spine right here from my hip to my head. I'm getting nice and long, almost like someone's creating traction. And what I'm doing is starting to actually get some good grounding from my left foot to get my diaphragm and this whole lower body to where my shoulder, and I can kind of get this action going on, which should be what I should get if I'm coming into my finishing golf. But a lot of times guys don't have this, which is why you see a lot of spin out. And so actually having that big toe in your adductor allows someone to get compression. This is where I don't have to trap out my left side. My shoulder can actually drop, and this gives me room to come through in my swing. So with the training perspective, now that we've gotten some good neural drive on that left side, we've gotten some good breathing, you know, spending maybe 2 rounds, 45 seconds to a minute with that kind of retro stance, 90-90 breathing drill. Now we're gonna kind of work on loading into that glute, adductor, that whole entire left side. So I think a lot of times for this, for people that haven't had access to the physics that drives this leg moving really well, goal is to just kind of keep it light and just kind of work into it. So on this drill, I like to keep it at either like 10 pounds or 13 pounds from a pull perspective, using either a what's that strap. You guys could take like two bands and tether it to this, or you could even go off like a rogue rack. The 2-inch block's just gonna help with the sacral nutation, but you guys can use this, a 2x4, kind of whatever, that's just gonna help you kind of get a little bit more into that left side. So what I want on here is I'm gonna take right arm, I'm gonna come through, and then I'm gonna set up on here. I want to kind of basically be kind of in line with that target. And the biggest thing I see a lot of times with guys that don't really load their left very well is like, if I look at your right heel, everything should be forward. No different than if I'm playing defense. I've got that shin, it's inside 90 degrees, versus if my back heel's here, it's like I'm not really in my left side. So I want to feel like I'm in that left leg, kind of weights forward. I can either use a ball, but I like to kind of work on getting some good air in that back for posterior expansion. So I'm going to inhale coming down, and then exhale coming back up. And a lot of times what I'll see is either this, or I'll see someone in that left side, like here's me staying in my glute, here's me going into extension. So it's like, imagine someone stabbing me in the rib cage here to stay in the butt. So I'm not kind of in that extended pattern, which is what a lot of guys do in that swing. And then I want to imagine as I'm dropping in, almost like I'm in an elevator shaft, where I'm going up and down, kind of head staying tall through that ceiling. And what this is doing is starting to get me to kind of rotate into that hip, and having a hip that's actually on and I can use it. Versus a lot of people are in extension and then they rotate, which is why they can't get into the actual hip. And if I can't get into the hip when I'm trying to come through the ball, I can't push up. So this is where a lot of times I get all this torque in my back versus being able to drive through the ball. Think like a Justin Thomas, they can slide a magazine through that lead foot at impact. But that's gonna give you the action you need to drive into the ground to actually start to feel things.